St. Cloud. Good morning, Jim.
Good morning, Jay.
All right, Jim. So let's touch on some of the things that happened yesterday. The Twins began their season with a 4-1 win against the Royals. Royce Lewis hits a home run in the first inning, just kind of typical thing that he does. Then he left the game later with a quad injury. Carlos Correa had a big day. Pablo Lopez pitched well. Your thoughts on yesterday's game?
Yes. And you know what? I also want to address something. You said yesterday that you'd heard a rumor that, or read a rumor that Justin Jefferson could be close to a deal, and I just hadn't heard that. I did a podcast with Jeff Diamond, our football expert at Talk North, and he said that he actually does think that there's kind of a structure in place for getting a deal done. Nobody knows exactly what the time will be, but he said that he doesn't think that the Jefferson deal will necessarily be contingent on waiting and seeing who they draft. So I think things are pointing in the right direction there. I just wanted to update you there. As far as the Twins, I mean, great game. How often have we said this over the last few years? Great game except for the injuries. Pablo Lopez was spectacular. The bullpen was very good. Correa had a great game. I wrote about it today. He only had 3 hits or more 4 times all of last year. He beat out very few slow grounders because he wasn't able to run hard on the plantar fasciitis. His hitting mechanics were thrown off by having a bad foot. Yesterday he looked great. The swing looked great. He had 3 hits. He had the double that got the scoring going. He beat out a slow chopper for another run, and he ran through the bag like he has no pain, made nice plays in the field. I thought that was the best development of yesterday. Second best development was Buxton looked fine. He had a hit and a walk. He moved around well. It was a really nice ball game, nice win. But, of course, the biggest story is Royce Lewis. He might be their best player. He might be an MVP candidate type player. Home run, single, then hurts his quad rounding second base. And is removed from the game. They said they weren't going to release any information on the tests until they have everything in order. I would guess sometime today we'll get an update. We don't really know how bad it is, but it certainly didn't look good.
How long? I mean, if it's a quad injury, I suppose there's probably variations as far as how severe it is. But what is a typical time for someone to sit with a quad injury? Is it weeks, months?
I mean, if it's just a quad strain, that's not one of the worst injuries you're going to deal with. And if it's just a quad strain, then it's some rest, some rehab, getting it going again, and then as soon as he feels good, he can play. So maybe that is weeks, maybe it's I don't know. But there's no way of knowing. We actually don't know what the injury is, so speculating is kind of silly.
It's one of those things that Royce Lewis he's had a lot of injuries.
Yes.
Buxton's had a lot of injuries. Injury prone, is that a thing, or is there ways that these guys can try to avoid getting hurt so often? I
mean, we're talking about really dedicated athletes. We're talking about people who work out year round and take great pride and want to be on the field. And have staff, they have their own teams around them. Then they have the Minnesota Twins support staff around them. I just think it's the reality. The reality of the modern athlete is they push themselves so hard to be explosive that they become brittle. I just think that's it. Buxton looks like an Olympic sprinter. He doesn't have any fat on him. He doesn't take time off. He just works and works and works. Royce Lewis is put together like a football player. I just don't think these guys. And there's a catch here. To be great in the modern game, you have to be explosive. Pitchers have to throw the ball very high or with very high spin rates. Hitters have to be able to generate tremendous bat speed. And if you're an athletic player, you need to be able to generate great foot speed. You can't do that taking 2 months off in the winter, So these guys push themselves year round, and they have to be great in the context of today's game. But it also is going to lead to injuries. There's no solution here.
We had some questions about the pitching heading in, and Pablo Lopez, who didn't have a great spring, looked great. And Brock Stewart threw the 8th inning. Griffin Jacks threw a scoreless 9th inning. So looks like maybe at least in the short term with Duran out, that you've got an 8th inning guy and a 9th inning guy.
Yeah, I mean, listen, Pablo is great, and he when you're making the team, you go out to the spring starts with no adrenaline and just trying to work on certain pitches or mechanics or something. So the results for a player who's established player, spring training results are less than mean less than nothing, absolutely nothing. So I'm not surprised at all that he went through just a routine spring to get his work in and then look great on opening day. He's an excellent pitcher. The bullpen, it's going to be a matter of how often can you use your best relievers, and how do the lesser relievers perform when you need them to? Brock Stewart's excellent. If he's healthy, he's close to unhittable. He's just a wonderful pitcher. Griffin Jacks has been a very good pitcher for this team, and he has good stuff. They're not Brock Stewart in the eighth makes sense no matter who's healthy. Griffin Jacks in the ninth, that's a different thing. Pitching the ninth inning is a different feeling. You feel a tremendous weight of responsibility for closing out the game. Some pitchers don't handle it very well. LaTroy Hawkins was a terrible closer, and he was a great setup man. It's a completely different mentality. So I think it's a big deal that he went out there on opening day with all the pressure on him, and he got through it.
Jim, switching attention to the Minnesota Wild, who won 3-1 against San Jose last night. Game was tied going into the third period. Matt Boldy gave him a goal and an assist. Joel Eriksson Ek and Ryan Hartman scored goals. They still got to make up a lot of ground, but they're hanging in there. Now it's the Kings are now holding on to the last wild card spot, so they're 8 points back of them. Your thoughts on the Wild?
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to give them credit, but they're playing at home against one of the worst teams in the league. They absolutely should win that game. It probably should have been easier than it was. I will say that Eriksson Ek is 30 goals for a really good two-way center. That's a heck of a season. And he's been out for injury for a little bit. He comes right back and scores again. He's a really good player. Boldy's having a good season, up to 25 goals. They just don't have enough depth, and the injuries they have had have been have hurt them a lot because they don't have a tremendous amount of depth. So the math is still terrible, but you got to beat San Jose if you want to pretend you're a contender.
The NCAA men's basketball tournament, a couple of really good late games. If you stayed up really late, maybe you're tired this morning, but Illinois beating Iowa State by 3. North Carolina upset by Alabama by 2 points. Clemson upset Arizona earlier in the night, and UConn wins easily against San Diego State. Your thoughts on the games last night?
Yeah, UConn just kind of eased the victory the way a really good team might do it, continue to do it. Alabama upsetting North Carolina isn't a shock to me. I'm not even sure these are really upsets. I mean, there's not a whole lot of separation between those teams. They're playing on a neutral court. North Carolina didn't play that great. I mean, North Carolina got destroyed in their conference championship game. To me, the best game of the night was going to be and turned out to be Iowa State against Illinois. Two teams that I really thought had a chance to make a run. Illinois because of their guard play and the way they play together, and Iowa State because they're really talented and played well at the end of the year. So I think it was a big deal for Illinois to win that game. Good for them, good for the Big Ten. Also just love the way they play. They play really hard, and they move the ball really unselfishly. For a team with some star power at the guard, they move the ball really unselfishly and really well. So I think they're a really well-coached team. I think because of their guard play, I think they're dangerous.
Purdue's going to play tonight. They take on Gonzaga. Boy, that looks like that could be a good one.
It should be, yeah. And Purdue has a reputation for not coming up big in March. That would be a big win for them to get to the the Elite Eight with a victory over a traditional power.
Some other games tonight. You got Duke versus Houston, Creighton, Tennessee, NC State, Marquette. Any of those games interest you?
I mean, I'm interested in all of them. I think we also, though, should talk about the Gopher hockey team. They played a very tough game against a physical Omaha team. They were down early. They come back. Jackson Nelson scores 2 late goals. Close has a couple of great saves down the stretch. They're advancing to their regional final against Boston, who's very good. Number 1 seed, the Gophers the number 2 seed. That could be a really good game. As far as tonight, I am kind of just intrigued by Purdue. How good is Edey? How far can he take this team? Also, the women's tournament starts up again tonight, and I think the women's tournament is frankly better than the men's tournament in a lot of ways. And we get more chances to watch Caitlin Clark, Paige Beckers, and Juju Watkins, and South Carolina.
Yeah, and it's also kind of cool in Minnesota. Got an interesting Minnesota story that at the Division II level, Minnesota State Mankato is in the championship game for both.
For men's and women's, that's quite a thing. And I used to spend a lot of time over in their facilities when I covered training camp for the Vikings in the 90s, and we kind of had our run of the place. I used to play a lot of hoops over there. Man, that university has grown up a lot, and so have their athletic program. So, yeah, congratulations to them.
One last one, Gopher men's basketball. 3 players entering into the transfer portal just yesterday. Braden Carrington, Farrell Payne, Isaiah Enan. Earlier in the week, it was Joshua LaJoseph. Your thoughts?
Well, of those 4, 3 are leaving because they're not going to get much playing time, which is, it hurts Gophers' depth, but it's not really devastating. Farrell Payne is the one that hurts. If you get Farrell Payne back with Elijah Hawkins and Dawson Garcia and Cam Christie and Mitchell, with a couple of good recruits coming in, you really have something. Payne leaves, and you really have nobody on the inside. Dawson Garcia is more kind of a swing player who can play inside, but it takes away their physical presence inside. That one hurts. And I'll be interested to hear once he talks about it, whether it was NIL money or some other reason. I think it has to be NIL money because he was going to play a lot and play a big role for this team.
All right, Jim, what do you got in your podcast?
We've got Jeff Diamond show up on the Vikings and the Jefferson negotiations. We have Preps Day with John Millay up, going around the state for prep sports and activities. Of course, we still have our Twins preview up that's still relevant even after the opening day, just on this team's fortunes and what it faces going forward. And everything's at talknorth.com or on your favorite podcast app. All
right, Jim, thank you. Have a good weekend. We'll talk to you again on Monday.
Thanks, Jay.
It's Jim Souhan, Star Tribune sports columnist, joining us every weekday morning at this time. Follow him on Twitter at SouhanStrib. Check out his latest column at Star Tribune or his podcast at TalkNorth.com. Dream Getaway. If you missed it earlier, we announced the winner. The winner of Dream Getaway 76 is Leah Nelson of St. Joseph. Congratulations to Leah. Not sure where she's going yet. Doesn't have to decide right away, but certainly a great day for her. Leah Nelson of St. Joseph wins Dream Getaway 76. We start playing WJON Win Cash with codes beginning at 8:10. On Monday morning, there'll be 10 codes per day, with the first one at 8:10 coming up on Monday morning here on WJON. Next on WJON, World and National News from ABC.